Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Collective Action for Corporate Water Stewardship. Water is the blood of our planet. The water stewardship is taking care of a resource that we do not directly own. In Sri Lanka, over 337 people across 8 out of 25 districts are facing a water crisis due to a dry spell and seawater intrusion into surface water. Water is important for Sri Lanka's development as reflected by share in the GDP, workforce or export earnings of water-intensive sectors like agriculture, textiles, tourism. The UN Global Compact CEO Water Mandate, which is implemented in partnership with the Pacific Institute, mobilizes business leaders on core elements of water stewardship so that business can understand and manage their water risks. The moderator for this session will be Amjad Azmir. Amjad currently works as a private sector associate for the UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka. His role is to promote the business case for environmental aspects of corporate sustainability for Network Sri Lanka member companies, for example, science-based targets and the CEO Water Mandate. His interest in the field of sustainability started after completing the Business Sustainability Management course by the Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership. He completed his Master of Science in Environmental Engineering from the National University of Singapore in 2021 and a Bachelor of Science in Chemical Engineering from the American University of Sharjah in 2018. He has had the opportunity to do internships at GlaxoSmithKline and Air Liquide. Over to you, Amjad.
Thanks, Zachary, for the introduction. So I'm Amjad, as Zachary mentioned, and I'll be moderating today's session. And I must say, it's a great honor to be here with such an esteemed panel of local and foreign experts to speak on the importance of collaboration on water. So it's nice to have everybody here, and it's no secret that in Sri Lanka, we are currently facing a dire energy and electricity crisis. And if one looks back, we can see that it was all due to a lack of preparedness. We didn't diversify our energy mix early enough, and there was no practical plan in the face of this crisis. So with energy, okay, but now we cannot afford to be in the same situation with water in the future. So we do need to work towards building a strong, resilient water infrastructure. And as we know, the global water risk is real. The World Economic Forum 2022, the Global Risk Report lists that natural resource crisis, and in particular, which includes water, is among the top 10 severe global risks that the world faces in the next 10 years. So we all need to be water stewards and work together, which means that we need to take a conscious effort to assess water risks in our own business and drive water performance through different strategies based on our different water targets. So with that short message, let's get right into the session. So for this panel this evening, we do have Mohammed Ahiyar, who is a researcher in agriculture water management from IWMI. We have Milan H, which is the deputy head of CEO Water Mandate and the associate director for corporate water stewardship at the Pacific Institute. We have Leonardo Rodriguez, who is an engagement associate of the Pacific Institute and the leader of the CEO Water Mandate's Water Action Hub. And finally, we have Sajjan Climb, who is working for UNDP and in particular focusing on the climate resilient water supply, water management project, and also is a climate resilient water supply specialist. So for the arrangement this evening, we'll have Mohammed speak first for 10 minutes to give us an overview on the current water landscape in Sri Lanka and some of the work IWMI is doing. Following that, we'll have a deep dive for about half an hour or 45 minutes by Milan and Leonardo on the CEO Water Mandate and Water Action Hub tool. Then finally, Sajjan will discuss the importance of collaboration in water. And then we'll wrap up with some question and answers and then the closing. So please do keep in mind that you can share any questions or thoughts on the discussion using the Q&A function. So with that, let's get into our first speaker. Just a short bio. Mohammed Ahiyar joined the International Water Management Institute, IWMI, in 2014 as a researcher in agricultural water management. He's an agricultural economist by training with around 30 years of experience. And he has executed many multidisciplinary research projects with special focus on socioeconomic policy, governance issues, and his experience also, he has also vast experience in working with the government sector, organizations, donor agencies, NGOs, and the private sector. So without further delay, I would like to leave the floor to Mohammed to share his thoughts and his presentation.
Thank you very much, Amjad, for your nice introduction. Am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, thanks. First of all, I must thank organizers for inviting me to this important webinar and they share some of IMI works. So, as mentioned, title is Water Landscape in Sri Lanka and some of the IMI activities. Before go to the topic, let me briefly introduce IMI. I think most of you all know about this. It's a scientific research organization focusing on sustainable use of water and land resources in developing countries. So to achieve our vision and mission, we are working on three major areas, major strategic program. One is food, other one is climate, and third one is growth. Food security, while maintaining sustainable water resources and ensuring ecosystem, and the adapt and mitigate climate change while building resilience to the disruption, and reduce poverty and vulnerability, addressing the inclusion, governance, and gender aspect of development. So this where we work. If you look at the IMI history, we are here from 1984. We started in Kandy as an International Irrigation Management Institute, and later the mandate was broadened to water management, and it's become as an International Water Management Institute. IMI was honored with a number of prestigious awards over the years. Especially in 2012, we received the Stockholm Water Award, and in 2020, we received the Prince Albert II Monaco Foundation Award for outstanding research for finding water solution for sustainable development. With this brief background, let me go to the subject. If you look at the water situation in Sri Lanka, we receive average of 1,700 millimeters of rainfall that provide about 112.3 billion cubic meter of water. So plenty of water we receive. It provide rainfall provide nearly all the surface and groundwater resources. If you consider the per capita water requirement, it is just 1,750 cubic meter per year. But the per capita water availability is 2,500 cubic meter. It might reduce to 1,950 by 2030. Still, it is higher than what is required. So this is the average situation. If you look at the total annual renewable water resources, it ranges from 43 to 45 cubic kilometer per annum. But we are capturing about 25% of this available water from surface and groundwater. Majority of the water, about 90% go to the agriculture, especially on rice cultivation, that is stable food of this country. About 94% of irrigation withdrawal is going to the rice cultivation. So as you look at this diagram, you can see that the most of the rainfall what we receive in this dry zone and the intermediate zone, it is withdrawn, except this wet zone area, it is in dark blue color. The other areas you can see that most of the water or rainfall we receive is withdrawn. So although the average situation looks good, the variability is very high because the rainfall we receive is mostly limited to 4 months, starting from October to February. It's spatially vary from 800 millimeter to 5,500 millimeters. That develop the three climate zone: wet, intermediate, and dry zones. So temporal variation is the 80% of annual flow occurs only in 4 months. So we receive drought one end, and other end we receive flood. So this variation create a lot of troubles and the production losses and livelihood losses and so many issues. Water scarcity is the major development constraint in the dry zone, which is 1/3 of the country. So if you look at the water resources, first we'll look at the surface water. We have 103 river basins throughout the countries. Our hydrological civilization is based on lot of development of man-made rainwater storages from the ancient time. We have wisdom of rainwater harvesting in the dry zone areas. That is to cope up the rainfall variability and the spatial and temporal variability of rainfall. If we look at by number, we have about 266 major and medium man-made reservoirs and about 12,000 small tanks or village tanks in the country. In addition, there are about 13,000 small-scale diversion wells, or we call locally anicuts, which is benefiting about 300,000 farm families. If I talk about the major and minor irrigations are the irrigation system which has a command area of more than 80 hectares. And minor irrigations are the irrigation area which are command area of less than 80 hectares. So major irrigation system contribute about 60% of annual rice production, and minor irrigation contribute 24% of paddy production, and rain-fed cultivation is only just 16% of the rice cultivation. So the staple diet is mostly depend on the irrigation, irrigated agriculture. So if you look at the small tanks or village tanks, we have about 12,000 to 14,000. There are different numbers quoted in the literature. We have about 12,000 to 14,000 village tanks in working condition, which is providing irrigation for about 171,000 hectares. It providing livelihood for about 330,000 farm families. And this village irrigation system provides additional storage of 0.42 billion cubic meter. So this is one of our cultural heritage, small tanks. Most of the civilization took place in this village temple and the tank system together. If you look at the village tank system in this country, most of the tanks in the dry zones are interconnected, and we call it as cascade system. This is considered as one of the UNESCO heritage development in the history. Now, if you look at the groundwater availability, we have about estimated 7,800 million cubic meter of groundwater per annum. However, our groundwater is very shallow, and the 90% of the land mass is in the hard rock area. So there is no continuous groundwater as it is. So the groundwater is in pockets of different tables, different areas. So groundwater potential is only 15% of surface water resources. And the groundwater is traditionally limited to northern province of this country where there is no perennial rivers. However, the groundwater is one of the major drinking water source of rural part of this country. And it is the only single source in some district like Jaffna. And we have nearly 30,000 of tube wells or more in this country. And the groundwater is the primary water source for export promotion zones, small and large enterprises, and tourist establishment, especially in the coastal region. So groundwater also very important source of water in this country. However, the spread of groundwater irrigation is accelerated in the recent part with the climate change and the related issues. Farmers are using the groundwater for high-value cash crops, buffering against drought and rainfall variation. There are open or tube wells with low-cost technologies, and that has a very strong pro-poor impact. And the income generated from the groundwater irrigation system in the country is 4 to 5 times higher than compared to many other South Asian countries, because this groundwater is used for high-value crop, not for paddy cultivation. We have about 200,000 to 250,000 agro wells by 2013 in this country, mostly in the North Central province and Northwestern province, and also northeast of this country. However, in the recent past, we can see this spread of groundwater irrigation as a conjunctive irrigation in the major irrigation like Mahavali system H. And we have recently estimated that about 4,700 wells are constructed in the Mahavali system H alone in the last 6 years with this changing climate and the scarcity of water in surface irrigation schemes. Now, let me go to some of the EMI activities we have done in the recent past. We did one work on climate weather index insurance. That is using the climate, the satellite technology and some computer modeling. We developed a product on weather index insurance that was bundled with the hybrid seeds, climate information, and the agronomic information. These messages are sent to farmers' mobile phone. So this was piloted in 5 districts in last year, and it was proved to trigger drought insurance to the farmers, benefiting so many farmers. And this project was extended recent past with the GIS funding to develop the universal weather index insurance portal to scale the bundle solution. This portal will be helpful to the insurance companies to use historical climate data and other information that will be used to design the insurance product and the trigger the insurance claims for their work. Another project we are doing here is increasing the resilience of biodiversity and livelihoods of Colombo wetlands. So wetlands are a very important ecosystem. So what we are trying to do is to promote the best practices in community wetland management to safeguard biodiversity and improve livelihoods and secure the well-being of the population of Colombo under this project. This is done under the Darwin's initiatives. And another project we are doing with FAO and RUA Foundation is Climate Resilient City Region Food System. In this project, we try to identify existing food system vulnerabilities due to climate change and provide information to cope with the shocks and uncertainties to build a resilient food system. So the aim of the project is also to facilitate the policy dialogues that will contribute to building the resilience of the food system, especially linking the urban-rural food system of this country. And another project we did in the recent past is development of smart farming platform called GeoGovia. This was done with the collaboration of Department of Agrarian Development. It's a cloud-based mobile platform to collect ground-level data with a real-time web application to monitor ground data. This capture dynamic farm surveys and monitor crop performance with key indicator that will provide real-time information to make decisions by the planners and the implementers. This is a project we did with the support of FAO and Ministry of Urban Development to address the issue of food waste at the wholesale, retail, and household level. The project developed the roadmap to prevent and reduce food waste in urban scale. This roadmap was launched to the Ministry of Environment last year. This is another thing we are doing here that is SAM, Systematic Asset Management Software for Irrigators. This is again open source platform that help to the irrigators to monitor their system, irrigation system assets, and the monitor and do the repair and other kind of work using this online platform. Thank you very much. I think I covered my time.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mohammed Ahiyar. I mean, especially for giving us such a comprehensive overview of the different water resources in Sri Lanka. And we, like you mentioned, with inland waters of 2,900 kilometers squared and a coastline of 1,500 kilometers, there's so much potential for good water management in Sri Lanka. And we also, I'm sure many of the corporates and the UN entities are also proud that IMI is continuing the legacy of community-rich, ancient water culture that was present in Sri Lanka. Also, it's important to understand water from a site-specific. We know that in the water ecosystem, geographical location is very important. And because the impacts and dependencies associated with water are site-specific. So it could, even for a corporate, it could be on-site, for instance, in the company's operations, or off-site along the company's value chain. But now let's get into the main part of the session, where we take a deep dive into the CO Water Mandate and the Water Action Hub. And for this, we have two of our UN Global Compact colleagues, Milan H and Leonardo, who will present also the Pacific Institute. So Milan H is the Deputy Head of the CO Water Mandate and Associate Director for Corporate Water Stewardship at the Pacific Institute. She manages the strategy and partnerships work for the CO Water Mandate and has particular interest in furthering a company's practice as it relates to business and the human rights of water and sanitation, collective action, and partnerships. Milan also holds a Master's in International Affairs from the University of Columbia, Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, and a Bachelor of Arts in History from the University of California. I'll also introduce the second speaker from the Pacific Institute, who is Leonardo Rodriguez. So Leonardo is an engagement associate for the Pacific Institute and leads the CO Water Mandate's Water Action Hub. The Water Action Hub, which we will hear more, is a global online collaboration and knowledge sharing platform for water sustainability and climate projects. So on the hub, Leonardo works with organizations to expand their local networks, and he maintains some of the hub's numerous community portals and supports users in exchange of community resources, business guidelines, and best practices. So Leonardo also holds a Bachelor's of Arts in International Studies from Columbia State University. So with those two comprehensive bios, I would like to invite Milan H and Leonardo to elaborate more on the CO Water Mandate and the Water Action Hub. Over to you, Milan.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much to Amjad for the invitation to participate in and talk about the CO Water Mandate with the network in Sri Lanka today. So I would, Mohammed did a very wonderful job giving the overview of the water crisis. So I'm not going to go into detail of this, but we know with the changing climate that we're all feeling now, that the climate crisis is actually a water crisis. The changing climate is where it's going to be felt first and foremost is in our water systems, We're already seeing in cases intensifying an increased number of floods and droughts overall. The changing as we just heard before in terms of the variability in the weather patterns and what that means for water systems is where we're gonna see the impacts on people and businesses in our entire economies. And that's exacerbating, right, the crisis around water that we're already feeling in terms of the number of people that are still lack access to safe water that we're seeing ecosystem systems decline overall. And that in the last report around the Sustainable Development Goal and Goal 6, how off target we really are in terms of really being able to meet those objectives at a global level. We've already seen what it means in Sri Lanka and what it means for people and communities, and the really need to really take action now. And from a business perspective, many of the businesses in the past few years, we've seen an increasing number, quite a significant increase in a number of businesses start to understand, right, that the climate impacts on water systems overall are having direct impacts on the operations. As Amjad mentioned, this is in their own operations, but in the supply chains, and also more broadly for those companies who have seen what this means in basins overall, not just in direct operations supply chains, but also in the basins and the communities where they have operations overall. So what is the mandate? We were launched in 2007 as a partnership, as mentioned, between the UN Global Compact as well as the Pacific Institute. It's really a platform on stewardship that is the largest one in the world, that is for leaders and learners. It's for companies of all shapes and sizes, and that we offer up a platform for learning and action across the spectrum, regardless of where the companies are in their understanding of water-related issues and where it is they're looking to take action now. The companies commit to a number of areas, which I'll go into, and that the only other aspect of requirements to be part of the mandate is to report yearly on progress. For those members who already, as you all are, as part of the network in Sri Lanka, this is very similar to the requirements for reporting around the COP each year. So today, we have over 220 companies who have endorsed the mandate. In the past year alone, as I mentioned, I think we were close to 50 companies who actually endorsed the mandate. It's the largest growth of companies that we have seen from both major global corporations like Sanofi, Bayer, Firmenich, and others, as you see here, to smaller medium enterprises as well, who have mostly a footprint at a national level. So a mixture of both large and small and medium enterprises who have been joined to mandate with this recognition that there's a need to take action on water now. The 6 commitment areas of the mandate, as you see here, span what companies might do in direct operations, where it is that they can actually have the most direct impact and control over understanding, the water-related issues of their manufacturing sites and so forth, to moving beyond that into their supply chains, understanding the water risk as associated in their supply chains, both upstream and downstream. And so this is actually for a lot of the companies, let's say the textile sector, in particular apparel and textile sector, the water footprint is in both their suppliers as well as their customers when they're looking at that. This is also true for pharmaceutical companies and so forth. And so that the companies take action across that entire value chain. The watershed management piece is critically important. As you'll see, a lot of the risks that companies are facing are not within their operations and so forth, but actually more broadly in their supply chain or our watershed management. And then the need for collective action. And we'll spend quite a bit of time on the collective action piece and the public policy engagement piece as well. Those are somewhat related in terms of when it is that you want to take action on this, how it is that you go about doing so, and then to work collectively in communities and then to report annually. So that's a transparency required. So this we view as a fairly comprehensive framework for taking action on water to start off with. So what we see in terms of joining the mandate, for some companies, the reason why they're joining the mandate is really to demonstrate their commitment to water stewardship, that they have done the work to understand that water is an important issue for the company, and that joining the mandate is really the place where they can say, we understand this and we are going to make a commitment to taking action on now. So it is the demonstration part that's vitally important. The next elements of it are really where you take that commitment to action. Right. The mandate works with groups of companies across sectors, but also with a broader network of water stewardship experts spanning NGOs, to UN agencies, to research institutes, around how it is that you can actually start to take take action now. I'm sorry, my slides are jumping a little bit. And then to pilot innovative concept tools and methodologies. The mandate has historically developed a number of different resources and tools to help companies along their stewardship journey. And we are the place where a lot of companies just join in order to know what it is that's coming, what is available, and we'll talk about some of the tools we're developing now in Leo's presentation to help companies in this learning process. And it is also the place where you can join events and webinars and high-level political fora. We're planning right now for the upcoming UN Water Conference in 2023, the first one in 40-some years, where water is going to be discussed at a global UN level. And that will be the place for a lot of discussions, both learning and best practice, but also advocacy and policy advocacy as well. What are requirements that I mentioned is actually quite simple to be part of the mandate. You just need to be part of the UN Global Compact. Of you, I believe, are already part of the UN Global Compact as companies. And then to do a yearly report on progress. That yearly report on progress can be a standalone one. If the company already has a sustainability report, it can be just embedded in a sustainability report. It can be embedded in the company's existing UN Global Compact, COP, or it can actually be, if the case where the company is already reporting the CDP as part of the public questionnaire, that will be required as well. The idea here is not to have an additional reporting burden. We know companies are very busy, but to make it as easy as possible just to show progress on water. So what do we do in terms of hosting and developing resources? As I mentioned, we developed a number of different guidance documents. In the past, it expanded issues such as water-related disclosure, to human right to water and sanitation, to collective action. The work that they're moving forward on are really at the nexus of water and climate. And I'll go into a little bit of detail about what that looks like. We actually have a webinar today on a water resilience assessment framework. That is what the RAF stands for. We also have developed a number of tools. Leo is actually going to talk about the suite of tools that we have developed now, from the Water Stewardship Toolbox, which is capacity building resources, to the university, to the Water Action Hub. And we'll spend quite a bit of time on those three in terms of the new evolution of our online tools that we have in development. And then also a monthly newsletter, which is basically where it is that companies can actually learn about what it is the mandate is doing on water stewardship. This is just an overview in some ways of how it is that companies engage in the mandate from project level, where a lot of the thought leadership and piloting the projects happen, and where companies actually get quite a bit of learning from those processes as well, to the peer learning, as I mentioned, to these endorser-wide virtual meetings, where it is that companies can learn about what's being planned for the coming quarter and how they can engage to the global related events. So moving into kind of the topic of conversation for today and the role of collective action overall. I'm going to step back just a little bit in terms of, if we're looking at water stress, what does it comprise and what does it actually mean for companies overall? And this is done as part of the water disclosure guidelines that we developed a few years ago, where if we break out water stress, it has a different number of components, right? The stress components, some folks have looked at it just from the availability angle, but it's actually broader than that. It includes quality and accessibility for companies and communities overall as well. But on top of that, like when we're looking at what risks to companies really mean, we have to look at first from the water stress element, but also the broader governance related elements that are not particularly stress related, but actually have impact on water availability systems. In this case, the topic that's front of mind right now is climate change, but economic development and so forth are also relevant in these topics and issues. And these, both the combination of this really pose risks to companies, operation, product, and services. And because it impacts the companies directly, but also the basins within which the companies operate, and this manifests into kind of physical risk, right? Do you have enough water? Is the water of the right quality? Reputational risk, if the companies are not really managing the water aspects related well, this leads to potentially an outcry, public outcry around those aspects. And regulatory risk, if the broader governance and regulatory framework isn't really conducive to proper water management, that poses significant risk to companies. And then as I won't go into detail of this, but we kind of see stewardship in the 6 elements as we've laid out as a really clear direct response to water related stress and risk, because it addresses the components within the aspects of where companies have direct control, from the operations side of the equation to that broader understanding of what's going into the value chain, to what's going on in understanding in basins, and then to create strategies and plans that are both kind of inclusive of what you can do within your own operations, but more broadly into what you can do externally with others in collective action and policy engagement and so forth. And the need to really engage externally is quite significant. If you look at the proportion of what it is that companies can control, many companies, as we're seeing now, have significant and well-developed water efficiency plans. Wastewater treatment plans are in complete compliance with what they need to be in compliance, and yet they're still facing significant water stress because of what's going on in the basin and watershed. And the only way to really address what's going on in the basin and watershed is to work with others and to do so not just on a bilateral relationship, but to work with broad groups of stakeholders to really bring about changes in those watersheds to have real impact. So what has this meant for the mandate is that our current strategy for 2021 and 2023 has two significant changes. We have done a lot of the work in innovation lead edge thinking. We'll continue to do so, particularly in the intersection of water and climate, where companies have not traditionally taken action. It's still very siloed. And we see that there's a significant need to bring those two together in terms of, if you're looking at water-related risk and strategies to respond to and adapt to and make sure that your company is resilient to the changing climate, how do you actually do so? And how do you layer on climate variabilities onto your water-related strategies? That's a significant area of work that we're working on now. But where we've kind of shifted is to do the second and third pillar that's laid out here around scaling responsible practice around collective action. And we do that through coalitions. Washwork and Water Resilience Coalition is how we're structuring a lot of those conversations, and development of tools and resources, which is related to Water Action Hub conversation, as well as starting to integrate and talk about advocacy around identifying what it is that has enabled stewardship to really flourish in different geographies around the world. And that's really done through what's being called a Water Stewardship Acceleration Forum that we're part of as part of the broader stewardship community as well, to identify good practice around policy and governance and to advocate for those related issues. And I'll just end with a couple slides on the Water Resilience Coalition, which we launched in 2020 as to really focus on this intersection of resilience and climate adaptation resilience, and to have companies actually not just develop strategies, but work collectively with others. The WRC calls on companies to make ambitious, quantifiable targets by 2030 and 2050 to create something that's analogous to the potential 1.5 degree campaign on the climate side, but on the water side. And as I mentioned, to really work collectively with one another in basins. And what does that mean? In 2021, we've actually identified 5 countries, 11 basins, and I think it's something like 16 projects, I won't count them up here, around the world, where there's groups of companies. We're now about 30 companies within the WRC that are working together in these places to reach scale. And we'll talk about how it is that the Water Action Hub has actually facilitated the WRC's identification of these opportunities and opportunity to work collectively with one another. So with that, let me turn it over to Leo.
Hi everyone, I'm going to share my screen. Give me one quick second. All right, can we see this?
Yeah, we can see. Thanks, Leo.
Okay, cool. Let's see if I can hide this. There we go. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Leo Rodriguez. I work for Pacific Institute and Theo Water Mandate. I primarily work on the Water Action Hub, which is a online tool meant to support collective action on water and allow organizations to find local and global partners. Within the mandate, I do also work on the Wash for Work initiative, which is an initiative that tries to mobilize businesses to address sanitation and hygiene challenges in the workplace, in the communities that they work in, and across their supply chains. And so very quickly, I want to give an overview of what the Water Action Hub is. And so what is the Water Action Hub? Well, it's a free global online collaboration and knowledge sharing platform for water sustainability and climate resilience. And so, it was developed in 2012 by the Pacific Institute and the CEO Water Mandate. And it first started off as a catalog of projects. And I mentioned that just to really contextualize that the hub is a continuously evolving tool based on the needs of what we hear from the water stewardship community. And so although it started as a sort of way for organizations to post their projects on the hub as a show of good efforts, we have now shifted to collective action, and we're making another shift, which is to provide more decision support tools to hub users and to coalitions and partnerships. And so if you notice on the right side of my screen, there is a map there. On the Water Action Hub, we love maps. In fact, it's one of the main benefits of using the Water Action Hub, which is to be able to see who's in your area, if there's any projects, any organizations, or local resources. And the benefit is if you see that there's someone near you, you can message them in hopes of collaboration. Or on the flip side, if you don't see any resources that are around you, you can post them and add to the global community. And so currently, the Water Action Hub has over 1,000 organizations and over 1,800 projects with a wide range of users, from small NGOs to larger NGOs. We have companies and agencies and tech providers on the hub. And so, that being said, the focus of the hub is collective action. And we mainly support this in two different ways. And so the first is through our matches features, which recommends resources, organizations to users after they fill out information. And so basically, you create an organization profile on the Water Action Hub. You detail any services that you provide, any services that you're looking for, and any projects that you're currently involved in. Or if you're just interested in a specific location, you can indicate that you're interested, on the hub, and then you give any relevant details about a project. And so once you put all this information on the hub, we quote unquote match you with local resources that meet that criteria that you're looking for. And it's almost like a dating website where you input the information and we try to pair you up with the most relevant resources. And so the other feature is our messaging system, which encourages users to engage with one another. And much like Facebook, the hub does not share your contact information. And so instead of, so if I wanted to reach out to a user on the hub, I can send them a message on the Water Action Hub, and the user on the receiving end will be notified through email that they have a notification on the Water Action Hub. And so this is mainly to protect users' data and to protect their privacy. Often at times we have sustainability officers, CEOs, or a range of different people in the bureaucracy of a company or of a specific agency. And so these two ways are how we support collective action in making connections between users. But now I want to shift to this last column, which is collective action decision support tools. And so this is really where the hub is kind of going. And so within the past 2 years, many in the stewardship space began to indicate that there was a gap in tools that allowed coalitions or partnerships to find common interests with a large number of stakeholders. And so Milan spoke earlier about the WRC, in which they wanted to reach a number of basins by 2030 and have an impact of millions of people. And so for the WRC, the primary challenge was getting a number of different companies to engage and find common interest in location, common interest in the types of projects that they wanted to engage with. But the challenge was also balancing the wants of individual companies with the needs of the communities that these projects are trying to help. Sorry, it keeps jumping on me. So there was a big need to find common interest and prioritize the needs of the water space. And so the Water Action Hub created these decision support tools. There's map data layers. There's the ability to share private locations. And then there's something called a trends page. And so the first one that I will be discussing is data layers. And so quite simply, data layers are different lenses to view national and basin scale maps through several key water indicators. And so the data from this map shows, it color codes the map and shows basin risk. And so the key water indicators are water stress, sanitation at the national and basin level, and water quality. And so this data derived from our partnership with the World Resource Institute, or WRI. And so this is one of the main ways that we hope to inform users of kind of what they're facing if they in their water stewardship journeys in specific areas. One of the other features that we have is the ability to share a private location. And so sharing a private location is really meant to support this internal dialogue for coalitions and partnerships. It allows organizations to detail where they have current projects. And if they don't want to share a specific location of interest, they can share private locations with one another. And so this is really, again, meant to support this internal dialogue of collective action of, where would you like to work? And then try and, dwindle it down from a number of different projects. And so this is just an example of the screen. I will be going through the Water Action Hub to kind of show examples of how the hub works. And so finally, we have a trends page. And so I know this is a lot of information. And so I'm going to break down very quickly. A trends page is a decision support tool for partnerships. And it mainly focuses on the prioritization phase of finding opportunities for collective action. And so, again, I want to, so an example for this would be the WRC has a number of different partners all over the world with a number of different projects. So the process to find a page like this are that those companies list their details, whether they're projects or locations of interest. They share them with the coalition. And then after that, the Water Action Hub is able to present that data based on the information that the companies put into it. And then from there, the coalition can make a collective decision based on where the most members are and based where the biggest needs are. And so I want to shift now to looking a little bit forward and discuss the Water Action Hub 4.0. So as of now, I've been discussing where the hub currently is, but looking forward, we do have some new decision support tools that are coming out this year. And so I have a video for you all. I hope you enjoy it. I think we paid a lot of money for it. And so let's see.
Water, our planet's key ingredient for life, is increasingly a source of deep uncertainty for our society, our economy and our ecosystems. Within the next 30 years, exacerbated by a changing climate, estimates by the UN see up to 5 billion people, or 1 out of every 2 humans living with clean water scarcity. Envision a different future, a world with river basins able to consistently supply the high-quality fresh water needed for communities, businesses, and the entire ecosystem to flourish. To build this water-resilient future, we need to be good stewards of our water resources today. Yet at present, the private sector has no complete view of stewardship best practice. While the world is facing a projected 40% shortfall in freshwater supply within 10 years, 44% of businesses have no plan to address water risks. The Water Resilience Coalition is working to change that. Launched in early 2020 by 7 global corporations as a new initiative of the UN Global Compact's CEO Water Mandate, the coalition set ambitious goals. Our members commit to net positive water impact by 2050 and embedding best practices across global value chains. To drive progress across all business sectors, we are developing a common language around water stewardship. The newly developed Water Action Hub 4.0 spans the assessment, insight and action continuum of achieving water resilience. To start, a user completes a short self-assessment. The process is straightforward, and even more so if you previously completed the CDP Water Questionnaire, making use of existing data. The assessment results provide a holistic view of a company's water stewardship compared to peers. Finally, practical actions are pulled from a curated library of solutions, including pertinent case studies from peers, existing water tools, and collective action projects to improve water stewardship where it matters most. Measurable progress to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals on water is possible, and understanding your stewardship performance and potential for improvement is an important first step. The new tool provides an enterprise-level assessment of water-related maturity, and no matter whether a company is leading or lagging, provides new insights and actionable recommendations for your stewardship strategy. Together, we can lead the way to achieve global water resilience.
All right. So that was a lot of information, but basically this is the vision for the 4.0, which is that we want to add to the current Water Action Hub a robust tool ecosystem. And so you'll see over here at the beginning, the company takes a self-assessment. We benchmark you according to your industry peers, and we also use data from CDP. And so the goal of the survey and the benchmarks are not to make organizations do extra work, but to already utilize existing data. From there, we suggest tailored next steps and any resources. And then finally, we encourage all companies and users to collaborate on the hub, which is the current Water Action Hub. And so this is the holistic view of where we are headed for this year. And so, I want to, let me see. So now I'm gonna, can we still see the screen?
Yeah, we can see it, Leonardo.
Okay, do we see the browser, or is it still the PowerPoint?
We're still on the slide, so maybe you might have to stop and share again, if you can.
Okay. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want to show a, kind of do a quick walkthrough of the Water Action Hub to really emphasize what I've been discussing today. And so this is the homepage of the Water Action Hub, and this is those beautiful maps that I discussed earlier. And so this right here is the data layers, which are, ways to view key water indicators on the global map. And so you'll see right here that this is showing water stress on the nation scale. And we can show water stress, sanitation access, and water quality. But if we wanted to get to a more granular level, something closer to a basin, hydro-sub basin, I can also show, those same indicators, and that would kind of look like this. And as I mentioned earlier, this is data that was provided in partnership with WRI, the World Resource Institute. And so that being said, this data is constantly being updated. We work with them to, make sure that this is the most up-to-date information that we have. And so this is just, like I said, just an example of, how this currently looks on the hub. And any map on the Water Action Hub, you will have these options to show boundaries and change the style that the map appears in. Okay, and so there's a number of different ways to explore the hub. And so if I were to go to Explore Global Map, this is the page where I'm currently in. I can search through projects, organizations, resources, and lessons. More broadly, if I wanted to find, look for specific projects on the hub that had to deal with, sanitation or hygiene, I can click on topics, and then this is, here we go. And so I can filter through different SDGs on the Water Action Hub. I can look through different countries on the Water Action Hub as well. And I have plenty of more filters if that wasn't enough for you. But all this is basically to point out that there are a number of different ways to search the broad catalog of the hub. We have over 5,000 locations listed on the hub, close to 6, which is just nice. Over 1,000 organizations and 1,800 products. And so we also have ways to view specific areas of the hub. So again, if you were looking for a project or an organization that addresses a specific SDG, I can go out to communities. If I'm concerned with partnering with specific industries, I can also search through industries, countries and regions, replenishment. There's a number of different portals on the Water Action Hub. And so finally, I kind of want to discuss this idea of sharing private locations and TransMap. Now, as the name implies, private locations. So what we're looking at is a front-facing public map of the Water Resilient Coalition's locations. And so this is not their private information, but this is information that the WRC is choosing to share with the hub. But if I was on the back end, there would be extra locations that the WRC communicates with one another, showing locations of interest. And so again, that feature of sharing private locations is just meant to support this internal dialogue within the coalition. And so this is also what the trends page looks like. As I mentioned earlier, the trends results mainly come about through companies sharing their current projects, where they have locations of interest, and then it balances that with the data layers. And this is currently what you're looking at. And so if I wanted to see, where the most amount of projects are in the world, I'd click through here. Turns out they're in India, and then I can search, or then I can see, how water indicators such as quantity, access, and quality are impacted. If I wanted to find out where the most partners were, that would be the United States. And again, I could see, water stress indicators, quantity, access, and quality. And so, that being said, the hub is a very versatile tool. We have users who, choose to use the hub as a way to find collective action and increase their local networks. And on the flip side, we do also have users who use the hub as a way to just post their goodwill. And so that being said, the Water Action Hub is very much a tool that, if you put work into it, if you would like to meet people, we have plenty of stories where, organizations are able to pair up with one another. And on the flip side, the hub is going in a direction where we want to support this decision-making. We also want to guide people to the correct guidance documents and any resources that we could possibly do. And so I'm going to go back to my slides. And so I know that was a lot of information on what the Water Action Hub is, but what are some possible next steps? Well, the hope is, some on the call today join the Water Action Hub and join the global community that we have started since 2012. So we're going 10 years strong. We're going through a new involvement, and the next step is for you to make a profile on the Water Action Hub for your organization, and then really after that, it's to add projects to the Water Action Hub and encourage your local partners to join. So the point of the hub is to encourage collective action and grow local networks. And so that being said, I'm going to if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out, and thank you for attending.
Thank you so much, Milan and Leonardo. Milan, you really touched on those 6 commitment areas for water stewardship, which laid the foundation for Leo to give us important insights and a good practical overview of the Water Action Hub. And also looking forward to the new exciting developments in the Hub 4.0. I really do hope that a lot of the Network Sri Lanka members joining us today, and also the ones that will hear the recording after, would also utilize this tool, and we will try to bring together key partners to maximize water stewardship through utilizing some of these tools. So last but not least, I would like to invite Sajjan Jayasirivardhana, who is a climate resilient water supply specialist from UNDP. So Sajjan obtained his Bachelor of Science in Engineering from the University of Murtua, his Master of Public Health from the University of Hawaii. He's also a Fellow of the Institution of Engineers in Sri Lanka, and is presently a water supply specialist in the UNDP for the Climate Resilient Integrated Water Management Project, which we'll hear about more. So Sajjan, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Amjad. Good evening to all. Can you see my screen, Amjad?
I think it's just loading. Let's see.
Can you hear me? So, yeah.
We can see it.
So, move on. I think Mr. Ahir gave a very good explanation of the, water landscape, and I can start from there. So my presentation today is on role of private sector collaboration to accelerate water steward progress. So, and I'll be covering two areas. Firstly, the experience from the project we are working with UNDP and Green Climate Fund, the Climate Resilient Integrated Water Management Project. Then I would move to tools and techniques to accelerate water stewardships. So starting with, before that, I just want to highlight this, this diagram, which we all know. So just to make you aware that we need the rainfall, of course, in the hydrological cycle. And whatever work do with water, we need to be either surface water or either groundwater or a combination of both, what we call conjunctive use. And also, I would just like to look at the effect we have on climate change from the cycle. So that this cycle would look differently if you look at the climate change. Yeah. Let me just make this moving. Okay. Okay. So we all know with climate change, so many things change: the temperature, the water vapor, air temperature, and all that. And of course, what matters is that that with climate change, we find that there is the number of rainy days per year of high rainfall increases. We have increasing trend, and also we see that the number of dry days in a year increase. So this is affecting any water user, whatever the use with water. And I will just put up two charts from the National Water Supply and Drainage Board. The one in left is the pipe water coverage, which stands around 64 to 64%. One in right is the sanitation coverage or wastewater. And you see that we have very limited coverage of pipe sewerage in the country. That is, of course, if you look at it as a problem, but also it's an advantage that there are a lot of resources to be reused and used as reused water. Okay, so moving into the CRIMP, the Climate Resilient Integrated Water Management Project. So just to share some small experiences. So the project has three main pillars. First one is the integrated holistic approach, where we try to connect together the irrigation, the farming practice, and drinking water together in the management. Then, of course, first time I think we are trying to implement the principle of IWRM in the water sector. So that's also something very interesting. And the final one is the most important aspect, that the project is creating and experiencing partnerships with the government, the non-government agencies, the communities, and the private sector. So just to share a basic detail, we are talking about 7 districts and working in 3 river basins, Mallathuru, Mawe, and Yanwe. I don't want to go to details. So this is one of the first aspects that I want to talk about in the project, where we talk about market-driven agroecology for climate-smart agriculture development approach in cascades. We took on 3 steps: climate-smart cascade villages. From there, we move into climate-smart enterprises, and then to climate-smart markets. So I will just share some of the work they have done in the 7 districts. Of course, we have specialists on agriculture, which I'm not, of course, and working on these areas. And we try to develop value chains, and we try to develop market systems, and also try to develop improve the value of ecological products in the market. And then we recently opened a climate smart market in Anuradhapura, and of course we have done one in Kurunegala. So these are just effects where the private sector can move in any time and collaborate with us. Next, I move into the next area that we are trying to explore is the ecotourism in this cascade that we are developing. As you can see, of course, this is something that the private sector can take up very easily. And I hope it has a very good potential to move on. Then, of course, we move to drinking water. If you see on the 2 top pictures, we are working with the projects mainly for rainwater to people in the dispersed areas. And not only working rainwater, we are for the first time trying to get the overflow from the rainwater tanks to use for to recharge the groundwater. The photo you saw on the left is sort of a cylinder sunk to the ground to store water, or in most cases we can the overflow from the rainwater tank can be discharged to a well. So that's how you can improve groundwater and of course improve the agriculture in the village and households. So we have very good experience on that. 2 pictures on the below. is a system that we are using rainwater to recharge a normal, what do you call it, open shallow well. We are using for a community water supply scheme. That's the first time. So we are using the rainwater to recharge this shallow well, which improves the water security as well as water quality. Then moving to our third area of climate information, the project is working with the Department of Meteorology to improve weather and climate information. Of course, it is not used by industries much, but we are using for agrometeor advisories. Then we are trying to develop real-time agrometeorological information, which of course rainfall, water levels, etc. And we are producing together with Mid-Department 5-day weather forecast maps, which of course are used by farmers for planning. Then we are also putting up seasonal and monthly and weekly weather forecasts, which are available for use. And of course, impact-based advisories for different sectors. So these are things that can be taken up by private sector also. So these are some of the advisories issued by the Department of Meteorology together with the project, so it can be used. So this is just the outline of the dissemination and how we can move on. And we are also working with the social media as well as radio to disseminate information. So with that, I also want to highlight initiative taken by UNDP together with the project. It's called the Water Platform. It's something that we have started sort of multi-stakeholder collaboration to increase coordination among all the stakeholders to improve sustainability. So we have three or four key areas. That is like sharing development concept, practices, lessons learned, and experience gained through pilot projects and programs on integrated water resource management, IWRM. So these are one of the objectives that the water platform is just to go through and produce. Then of course, develop roadmap and frameworks for the water sector to catalyze SDGs, acceleration, built on USL water mandate policy and strategies. Then thirdly, provide diagnostic support to identify gaps and providing policy advice support to USL to identify gaps. Then of course, effective and coherent investment, so IWRM and management. So these are initiatives that is taken by UNDP together with donors, the government and of course with the private sector's involvement to have for a better water stewardship. With that, let's move into some tools and techniques that we can use. So one is of course the IWRM, which I don't want to go through in detail, which is of course some tool that we need to use for any water user, whether it's drinking water, irrigation, or whatever use. Then, of course, very importantly, the proper land conservation, which I think we need to be very mindful, and which can have different effects if you don't use it effectively. It's like and definitely the catchment management as an area where we can work collaborative with all stakeholders. So we are very positive to see that things coming up in this area. Then also we need to work on the areas like stuck a little. Okay, then we know we need to have proper farming practices and correct use of agrochemicals so that we don't overuse them. Then a very important tool, water reclamation. So that's the plus point where most of the private sector can also come in with their factories, officers, or when you have a large land area, recycling, reduce and reuse 3 Rs. Of course, this is an area where a lot of research has gone in and a lot of research is also required. So we can use this water for secondary uses, as well as, of course, there are places we are using this for drinking water also. So this is an area I think we need to focus very strongly in the coming years to reduce the gap. Then, of course, groundwater recharge and management. I think this is an area that we have to concentrate again, and the project that we're working on that, and we need to make it a common base and sort of initiate and share the experiences, and you sort of work on this. So this is one of the best tools to be resilient to climate change. So I think I don't want to go through one by one, but we need to be mindful about the need for recharge and also manage. Then, of course, there are a lot of things where you can increase infiltration, especially you can do it in institutions and factories and all that. So think of different types of payments you can have, how you can reduce runoff and increase infiltration. So these are some of the things that can be also tried and debated. So, and also drainage systems where you can use as a drainage and also collect and reuse. Then simple infiltration systems where you can shallow trenches, where you can store the water and then reuse it. Of course, groundwater recharging ponds. And it's a very, very useful concept of using constructed wetlands, which can polish or which can improve your wastewater and your drainage water and all that. And then use for agriculture and other purposes. Then, of course, we need to focus on water saving practices and demands. I don't want to go through one by one detail. So these are the things that we can think of. Of course, water conservation campaigns. It can be CSR campaigns and campaigns, including the workers, including the professionals and all that. So these are some of the things. So I think that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sajjan, for talking about the CRIWMP and giving us some of the solutions, which are very important, and also linking water and climate change. So I think water and climate change is particularly important because, as we saw in the Working Group 2 report, there was an entire chapter from the IPCC on water. So due to the time, unfortunately, we won't be having time for a Q&A discussion. But to the attendees joining us, please feel free to contact the CO Water Mandate group or Network Sri Lanka should you have any questions. And I would give my heartiest thanks to all the panelists today for giving us some of your advice on water stewardship. So let us use this precious and scarce resource as a catalyst for collaboration. That's what I really have to say. And thank you everyone for being a part of this Network Sri Lanka session, despite all the power cuts and tough circumstances facing us in Sri Lanka. And I hope it sparked some new important ideas and is a catalyst for further or stepping stone for further sessions and utilization of the tool. Finally, just before I say bye-bye, I would like to call on all businesses attending this call to join the UN Global Compact Network Sri Lanka and also work towards endorsing the CO Water Mandate. With that, I would like to give my final thanks to all the panelists and the attendees. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.